All right, so we are back. And today, we're diving into some listener questions, specifically about Elon Musk.
Yeah.
You guys sent us a bunch of really fascinating articles and analyses about him, and I think it all boils down to one big question.
hmm
What's the real motivation behind all these massive projects that he's undertaking? Is it really this like pure desire to help humanity kind of advance and, solve big problems? Or is it more about, the bottom line profit and maybe just, enhancing his brand?
I mean, it's a question that you almost can't help but ask when you look at the sheer scope of his ambitions.
Right.
I mean, you've got Tesla completely shaking up the car industry, SpaceX pushing the boundaries of
Yeah.
space travel. You've got Neuralink, which is exploring this, wild frontier of brain-computer interfaces,
Yeah.
and even the Boring Company trying to revolutionize how we think about
Yeah,
infrastructure.
like tunnels.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when someone's involved in so many potentially, game-changing ventures, it really makes you wonder what is driving all of this.
Yeah, for sure. And you sent over some materials that highlight this kind of interesting tension,
Hmm.
where on the one hand, you've got Musk talking about like making humanity a multiplanetary species
Right.
and pushing for sustainable energy, which I think we can all agree are like, pretty big, pretty important goals.
Huge, yeah.
But at the same time, these are also incredibly valuable companies. So it's like, where does the idealism end and the profit motive begin?
Right, yeah. It's a fascinating question and a complex one for sure.
So let's start with that first angle. The idea that it's really this vision for humanity's future that's the driving force behind it all.
Okay, so when you really dive into Musk's public statements and the mission statements of his companies,
Mm.
you do see this very long-term vision focused on addressing big challenges facing humanity.
Okay.
Take SpaceX, for example,
Mm.
the message about making humanity multiplanetary.
Yeah.
It's not just about, exploring space for the sake of it.
Right?
It's framed as a crucial step to ensure the survival of our species,
Mm.
a kind of insurance policy against potential catastrophes here on Earth.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like a backup plan.
Exactly. And it's not just talk. The scale of their Mars colonization plans is just immense.
It's mind-boggling.
It demands a level of investment and long-term commitment that goes way beyond typical business thinking.
Right.
And then you have Tesla, which from the very beginning has been all about accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy,
Mm-hmm.
making electric vehicles and the technology around them more appealing and accessible. And that's obviously a direct response to the very real threat of climate change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's striking is that these ventures, they aren't necessarily the most straightforward or quickest paths to profit.
No, they're not.
The initial investments are massive and the potential payoff, especially with something like, building a self-sustaining colony on Mars.
Right.
That's decades, if not generations away.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When you consider that kind of long-term focus,
Hmm.
prioritizing these grand, almost civilization scale objectives,
Yeah.
it does suggest that there's something more at play than just maximizing profits in the short term.
Hmm.
It hints at this deeper ideological commitment, a belief in a particular future for humanity that seems to be a major driving force.
So it's like he sees his wealth and his companies as tools
Yeah, powerful tool.
to achieve these far-reaching goals that ultimately benefit humanity. It's like he's this visionary using his resources to try and solve these huge global problems.
Yeah, I think that's a very compelling interpretation, and it does align with a lot of what he says and what his companies are publicly aiming to do.
Right.
This perspective really emphasizes that connection between Musk's personal beliefs and the long-term goals of his businesses, suggesting a genuine commitment to tackling existential risks and shaping the future of civilization.
Okay, so that's one side of the coin.
Right.
But, as you pointed out in the material you sent, there's also the other side of the argument, right? That while these visions might be grand and even sincere, there's also a very real profit motive at work. So how do we reconcile those two seemingly different motivations?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, because the idea that innovation and profit are somehow mutually exclusive is probably too simplistic.
Okay.
Even the most idealistic goals, they often need a solid financial foundation to become a reality.
Right.
And look at Tesla, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, their mission is all about sustainability, but their massive growth has made a lot of people very wealthy, including Musk himself.
Yeah, and it wasn't just about introducing electric cars. It was about creating a product that people really wanted and were willing to pay for.
Exactly. And with SpaceX, while the ultimate goal might be Mars,
Right.
they've also built a very successful business launching satellites and securing those lucrative government contracts.
Yeah, they're not just launching rockets for the future of humanity. They're providing a service in a rapidly growing market.
Right, and the more skeptical view tends to emphasize this point.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, while those long-term visions are captivating the immediate and very real success of these companies,
Right.
the soaring valuations,
Hmm.
the constant influx of investment, and Musk's own skyrocketing net worth,
Yeah.
it suggests that profit is still a very powerful and central motivator.
It's hard to ignore that.
It is. And it raises the question of whether these forward-thinking initiatives are also fundamentally about capturing market share and maximizing shareholder value.
So the counterargument isn't that the big visions are insincere, but that they're inseparable from this drive for profit and market dominance.
Yeah, the innovation leads to a better product or service, which then drives financial success.
Okay, so it's not a simple either-or scenario.
No, it's much more nuanced than that.
And the idea of this blended reality where the altruism and the profit motive are actually intertwined, that seems like the most plausible explanation based on everything we've looked at.
I think that's a really good way to put it.
So what do you think? Is that how it works with people like Musk?
I think, so it's rarely a straightforward dichotomy when you're dealing with individuals operating at that level of influence and ambition. You know, Musk, like many of today's billionaires who are really driving change,
Right.
they operate in this complex space where personal ambition,
Yeah.
this desire to make a positive impact on the world, and the need for financial success,
Yeah.
they're all interconnected and they feed into each other.
It's not one or the other, it's all of it.
Right, and you see that with Musk, his public statements, they often focus on this mission to improve the world.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the decisions made within his companies, they're also clearly influenced by market forces and the need to generate revenue and grow the business.
And what about his kind of unusual communication style?
Yeah.
Being so active on social media, making bold pronouncements, even controversial ones sometimes. That seems to play a role in this too, doesn't it?
It definitely keeps him and his companies constantly in the public eye.
Right?
And that carefully cultivated image of the disruptor, the visionary, who's not afraid to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
It's incredibly valuable for his businesses. It generates buzz, it attracts top talent, and it shapes public perception.
People want to be part of something big and exciting.
Exactly.
Right.
And that image of someone working towards a better future for humanity, it undoubtedly contributes to the success of his ventures,
Yeah.
both in terms of attracting investors and building customer loyalty.
So it's like the desire to improve the world and the drive to build a powerful and profitable company, they become mutually reinforcing.
Exactly. They work together.
So the big vision provides this compelling narrative, this sense of purpose, and that in turn fuels the business success, which then generates the resources to pursue even more ambitious projects.
Right. And that pursuit of innovation, it drives progress both technologically and in terms of its potential impact on society. And at the same time, it fuels financial growth and market expansion.
So it's not necessarily a zero-sum game.
No, not at all. These forces can actually work together quite effectively.
So where does all this leave us when we think about the future? As Musk's influence grows across multiple industries, how should we be thinking about these intertwined motivations?
Well, as his companies continue to advance and shape our lives, the debate about the priorities of these ultra-influential figures.
Yeah.
Is it about serving humanity or is it about the bottom line?
Right.
That debate is only going to get more intense.
Makes sense.
Because the decisions made by people like Musk, they have huge consequences for the global economy, our societies, and the health of the planet.
And it highlights that dual nature of innovation, right? The potential for positive change is there, but so are the risks of unchecked wealth and power concentrated in the hands of a few.
Exactly. And that raises some really important questions about accountability oversight
Right.
and the role of society in guiding innovation so that it benefits everyone, not just a select few.
Yeah, that's a big one. How do we make sure this kind of influence is ultimately directed towards the greater good?
That's the challenge, and it's not an easy one to answer.
Especially with these blurred lines between doing well financially and doing good for the world.
Yeah, it's both an incredible opportunity and a potential risk.
Definitely.
And ultimately, the true measure of success for someone like Musk and for society as a whole might be how well we can balance that pursuit of financial success with making meaningful, positive contributions to the well-being of humanity and the planet in the long run.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Elon Musk's motivations,
Hmm.
it seems like it's not a simple choice between altruism and profit.
Nope.
It's a much more complex and dynamic relationship where those two forces are constantly shaping and influencing each other.
Absolutely. Gaining a deeper understanding of that relationship is crucial if we want to really interpret the actions of these highly influential people
Yeah.
and assess their impact on the world around us.
So as you've been listening today, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
What's your take on the driving forces behind Elon Musk's big ambitions?
And maybe even more importantly, as you consider this intertwined nature of profit and progress, what ethical considerations and societal structures do we need to ensure that the pursuit of innovation truly serves the best interests of humanity in the long run? That's something worth thinking about.
Definitely. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.